we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the unanimous Declaration of Independence by the 13 United States of America on July the 4th, 1776. Now, I'm told that when that Declaration of Independence from British tyranny was made, that the right to pursue happiness meant the right to live free of oppression, of tyranny, the right to worship freely, and the right to live a peaceful existence. Now, I sometimes wonder today if the right to pursue happiness means the right to shop. But that aside, we have to admit that in pursuing happiness, or the pursuit of happiness, is the quest that is very much core to our lives. And that's one reason why we find a book like the book of Ecclesiastes so threatening and compelling at the same time, because the teacher there observes that a great deal of human unhappiness is caused by our own false dreams and expectations. He observes that we act like fools when we don't accept the works of God in his world. And the truth is, we live in a world where sometimes, no matter how much work or talent or money we put into pursuing what we consider to be our own happiness, we're frustrated. The truth is, time and chance and opportunities not taken, or that never appeared, or poor decisions that we made, or even good decisions that we made, or oppressions and illness and moth and rust, as Jesus put it, and of course, in our days, software upgrades. All these things can mock our learning, can mock our experience and our effort, and frustrate our pursuit of happiness. But there is something worse than all that, says the writer in Ecclesiastes. And it's this, that one day we will come to ourselves and discover that in our pursuit of happiness, all our efforts to earn it and all those efforts to try and trap it and keep it, we actually lost sight of the essential gift that God has been holding out to each of us for our life in this beautiful but passing world. That in trying to pursue or capture or earn our own happiness, we've missed the gift of contentment with thankfulness and joy that our Creator is holding out to us in our daily lives. So from that short reading we've had today, which it comes in the middle of chapters where the teacher's been describing the frustrations that can be associated with pursuing wealth and earning a living. And suddenly he stops and basically he puts up this heading. And in this heading he says, this is what I've seen to be good, tov, complete. Here is what is fitting, here is what is right, here is what is beautiful in its time in this world. So from verse 18 of chapter 5 there, this is what I observe to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat and to drink and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labour under the sun, during the few days of the life God has given them, for this is their lot. Now this is not a throwaway line in Ecclesiastes. We know this because 7 times in Ecclesiastes the teacher writes about this particular good in the midst of all the evil and oppressions that he's seen, that we talked about last week, in the midst of all the futility and the frustration, in the midst of the meaninglessness that can cling to our pursuit of wealth and of pleasure and of achievement and of wisdom even. 7 times he says in this short book, here is what is good. Now, any student of the Bible knows that when you get that 7-fold repetition, you have to pay attention. Because you know you're looking at a sense of completeness, because basically this is a work of God. Whether it's the 7 days in the opening chapters of Genesis, or whether it's the 7 sacrifices and 7 feasts of Leviticus and Numbers, or whether it's the description of our own times through the 7 troubles that we read about in the book of Revelation, here is something serious. Here is something lasting. And it's not hevel, it's not passing, it's not mist-like, because this is the work of God. So, what is this substantial and lasting work of God? And that's what's really surprising here. This lasting work of God is found in our daily, ordinary lives. So, 7 times we're told this is what is good, to eat and drink. And it's not just about the food. It's about the company you share the food with. Sharing a meal is a declaration of friendship, of fellowship, a declaration of doing the journey of life together, something that is tov, something that is complete. And it's found in our work. The toil of our days, finding enjoyment in the job well done. And again, it's about the people too that we do the job with. So in our daily lives, there is on offer a gift of contentment with thankfulness and joy. And maybe it's hidden from us. Maybe because we can't slow up to see it or receive it. Or maybe because we're just basically too grown up. You know, our pride is about getting it all done for ourselves. And that's what's holding us back. Maybe it's got to do with lockdown Mark II, where we're isolated from each other. And what's so frustrating about this time is that it's more difficult to enjoy these fundamental joys that God holds out to us in our daily lives. But the truth is, if you're like me, we tend to approach our food and our relationships and our work at speed and with anxiety that springs out of the message that somehow has been drilled into us that we've got to save ourselves. So we roll out fast food where we're consumers and not producers or connoisseurs. We roll out fast relationships where we're consumers and not committers. We roll out fast work where we think about productivity or KPIs or that checkbox on the electronic to-do list, as if that was the only goal, as if that we are like the machines that we're working on. And somehow all this overwrites pleasure or satisfaction or joy. And the great irony for us in the workplace is that the research has shown us that it wears us out. It also wears out our creativity, and therefore it wears out our productivity. Simply because we don't make joy part of the priority of what we're achieving and seeking. And the net effect is we'll walk around the edges of it, or we'll plunge right into it, into burnout. And we make what we do, the ordinary lives that we live, hevel, a passing mist. And that warns the sage in Ecclesiastes, it's foolishness, not wisdom. And isn't it a telling time to be thinking about these things at the moment? I recently watched a small documentary where a musician, an office worker, and a personal trainer talked about how their working lives have been changed by the pandemic. Now, the musician, of course, could no longer go out and do live gigs, so he was running a recording studio from home, and he was frantically putting music on the internet and producing CDs that he was delivering. There were long, long days for him just to earn a living. He was really tired. The office worker, well, she was also working from home. The company she was working for had to reinvent itself. She was doing 14 to 16-hour days because she was anxious about the future of her work, and the company was facing so much uncertainty down the track. So she was overtired, she was teary, she was on the edge. And the personal trainer, she'd moved from doing 30 sessions to 90 sessions a week. And she said, that the clients used to be just around the corner. Now they were all around the world because people were accessing her services via the internet. But she kept on repeating while she was being interviewed, it's just too much. This is too much. Now, what struck me was that all of these people were doing things that they were gifted at and in the right proportions would love to be doing and be grateful for. But right now, it's a form of slavery. And I know, we know this is a reaction to uncontrollable circumstances. This is a reaction to uncertainty in the future. It's a reaction to our need to reinvent our livelihoods or just plain earn a living. And we know that there is too much work to be done in the time that we have. And we know that the technology that was meant to lighten the load and give us better opportunities has actually, in many unexpected ways, kind of increased the burdens on us. It's raised the bar on us. And we know this because that's where many of us are too, right now. And one day soon, if it hasn't happened already, we will run out of steam and we'll run out of interest. We'll run out of the ability to maintain the pace, and we'll wake up and find that we let our fears become our master. And we forgot to allow for the gift of contentment with thankfulness to receive simple joys to be a priority in our lives. Now, I'm spending time on this point because the teacher wants us to see that in contentment and simple joys of today, of this day that you have now, in the moment we're living now, is the gift of God for us. Now, why is that contentment the ability to enjoy simple things, the supreme good in the book of Ecclesiastes? Because it's grace. Now that's an odd thought, isn't it? Here's your daily work. Here's your daily food. Here are the people you do it and share it with. It's all very ordinary. And God is holding out to us in those things grace, gift. The life you have, the food that sustains that life, and the contentment, the joy, and the company you do life with is grace, is gift. And the teacher observes we will not receive God's gift of contentment while we're pursuing the idols, the breaths, the hevel of false expectations. We cannot be content if we're either trying to be our own creators or unable to recognize and accept the times that the Creator's actually given us. We can't be content if we are ignoring the work of God in this world at this time. And if we basically refuse to revere him and clumsily put ourselves in his place, then we'll miss the joys, the grace that he's holding out to us. So we say we have a right to pursue happiness. And we work for it, we insure for it, we design our political and economic systems to make it much more likely, and they're good. They're necessary and righteous things to do. But the teacher says that the reason we struggle to hold on to happiness or to earn it or to grasp it or to trap it is because it's not something that we can earn. It's something that we receive. It's a gift given. It's grace. And I guess if we're thinking biblically, it should not surprise us that the happiness in this life and in the life to come follow the same pattern, that the contentment, the joy, the thankfulness in receiving the simple gifts of grace of God in this world overflows into the greater joys and the greater thankfulness, the complete contentment of the world to come. A content and thankful life lived out in reverence of God now, in this frustrated and puzzling creation, is a gift of the same God who in Jesus Christ has promised us a renewed life, renewed joys in a renewed creation. And this grace starts in your lunchbox. It starts with your morning coffee and with your friendships, with your associates, your business partners. It starts with your daily work. Talk about in your face grace. The teacher, not in being, it's not in being incredibly religious that you're going to find this. In fact, he's got words of warning to teach us in a little bit about being over-religious. But you find the lasting works of God in your daily bread and the work you do and the people you share that with. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes, I have to point out, is not a biblical freak in this. The writer's, what he's doing is distilling, he's concentrating themes that you'll find elsewhere. He's giving the counterpoint of the melodies that we read about elsewhere in the scriptures, except that here in the book of Ecclesiastes, the counterpoint becomes the main theme. So let me give you some examples of where that theme emerges. Like in Luke, Mary, Jesus' mother, says in Luke chapter 1, his mercy extends to those who fear him. From generation to generation, he's performed mighty deeds with his arms. He has scattered those who are proud in their innermost thoughts. He's brought down rulers from their thrones. And in Ecclesiastes, that means that they've been frustrated. But he's lifted up the humble. In Ecclesiastes, that means they've received joy. And he has filled the hungry with good things, but the rich he has sent away empty. Or the writer of the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 13, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you or forsake you. Or Paul's letter, first letter to Timothy, chapter 6, he writes, but godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing from it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. But those who want to get rich, they fall into temptation and to a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, and some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. You could hear Ecclesiastes in there, can't you? Please don't hurt yourself in these harmful pursuits. Or Jesus in Matthew 19. It's hard for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. That is, to enter the kingdom of heaven that's here now. To receive the joy, the contentment, the thankfulness that God holds out to us now. And I think that's why we get, when Jesus says in the same context in Matthew 19, that we need to become like children to inherit the kingdom of God. We understand him because we watch young kids, and boy, young kids, they can be troublesome. But when they find joy or when they find contentment or wonder, in the shortest of time, they'll grab it with both their hands and they'll swallow it whole. Whether it's watching birds or a puddle that's a little bit too deep for the gumboots, or autumn leaves, or the wonders of a cheese toastie, don't get me started, or bubbles in a cold glass of water. And we grown-ups, we watch children enjoying these things, taking pleasure in these things, and we love that stuff because it takes us back. It takes us back to when we felt those things too. And we call it innocence. It's just that the teacher in Ecclesiastes 7 times calls this the work of God. And it's like a bell of brightness tolling in the bleakness of a meaningless and passing world in that book. Here's the gift of grace. Revere God, know contentment and joy when you sit to eat and when you rise to work. We are proud. And we are trained to be proud. And it's hard to be content. It's hard to accept what we have, even the very breaths that we take are a gift. And we need to be thankful for them. It's hard to stop grumbling. It's hard to stop earning our way or to let ourselves be dependent. It's hard to stop being anxious. It's hard to stop trying to justify our lives and to receive instead the enjoyment God is holding out to us. It's hard to accept our lot, as the teacher says. It's hard to be like a child again. This is what I have observed to be good, that it's appropriate for a person to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their toilsome labour. Under the sun during the few days of life God has given to them, for this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. They seldom reflect upon their days because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. So may it be.